1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
So we're very fortunate that so many organizations are here tonight to help make this possible, and 2 individuals from those organizations are going to help kick it off. So let me introduce Samantha Woods and John Welsh.
So we just put this together a few minutes before. Anyways, my name is Samantha Woods. I'm a volunteer board member with the Weir Watershed Association, which was formed about 2001 was when we incorporated as a nonprofit. And we're really excited that you all are here. I'm so excited to see all of you, and I hope that you'll find this evening informative, and more importantly, we'll find it informative as we go through some of the evening's process.
We wanted to start with a presentation called Water 101, or Patty and I like to call it From Cloud to Tap. So we just wanted to try to level set the group, and we thought, who better to do that than our very smart John Walsh from Aquarian, probably one of the most knowledgeable people in New England on this topic. So, Robert, if you can help me, we'll just move this, and we'll turn on John's presentation, and we'll get started.
The topic tonight is water, and I figured I'd start the discussion with a description of the hydrologic cycle. And the hydrologic cycle just explains how water continually moves through the environment. So we can start with precipitation. Precipitation falls to the earth, falls from the atmosphere into the earth, and eventually it evaporates into the atmosphere. And that can take anywhere from a couple hours to a couple centuries, depending on which water and the path that it takes through the environment. So along with those surface water resources in town, there is groundwater underneath our feet in the form of aquifers. And so what's an aquifer? Well, here I've got the typical subsurface geology in this area. And it's typically comprised of 3 different types of sand or rock. You've got bedrock, and then over that, in some places, you have till. And till is a mixture of silts, clays, sands, and cobbles. And we also have typically deposits of sand and gravel. And the sand and gravel got there from the last time the glaciers receded from this area. When those glaciers receded, the meltwater from the glaciers carried sand and gravel into ancient valleys. And you can see one here formed by the bedrock. So the meltwater went into the glacial valleys, carrying sand and gravel with it, and the sand and gravel would fill up those valleys. And sand and gravel provides the conditions you need to create for an aquifer to form. And in particular, the characteristics that it has, it's got a lot of relatively large pores between the soil particles. And as water infiltrates down through the ground, it accumulates in those pores. And when you've got large deposits of gravel, you can get large accumulations of water. But the pores are large enough too, so that water can move relatively quickly or easily through the soil, which means you can actually move it toward a well. You can store lots of water in clay, but the pores are so small in clay that the water will not move through it with any ease. This shows the infrastructure that we use to deliver this water to homes and businesses in 3 communities. And it starts at our wells There's a well pump in each well that pumps water through a network of raw water mains that lead to our water treatment plant. We also get water, as I said, from Ackworth Pond, and sometimes we let it flow by gravity, but when we need more water, we've got a pump station there, we can pump the water to the treatment plant. In the treatment plant, we treat 24 hours a day, every day of the year. We're removing naturally occurring contaminants, particles, dissolved organic matter, dissolved iron and manganese, and bacteria. We also have chlorine for disinfection, fluoride for dental care, and a couple chemicals to inhibit corrosion of our water mains and actually in the plumbing of our homes. So once the water is treated, we store it in a 1 million gallon tank, concrete tank, which we call a clear well, and from there we pump the water into 190 miles of water main that is in the 3 towns. And connected to that water main are 2 large tanks. One tank is on the edge of Ackworth Pond, and the other is on Turkey Hill. And between them, it's about 2.7 million gallons of water storage. And we store that much water to ensure that 24/7 we have enough water for regular use and for firefighting. So with that, I hope I met Amy's challenge of describing cloud to tap.
Yes.
And I'll pass it back to her.
Thank you. We're going to stand up and do something that we like to call a round robin. And the reason we're going to do this is we're breaking out into 3 different groups for short presentations. One, that the individuals who spoke at the beginning about the organizations that are focused on the watershed, they're going to go into greater depth about what they've been working on, what are some of their greatest accomplishments, as well as what are some of their top challenges. And it's going to provide some context to the group. We can come back and talk about what these challenges are and what have we missed, what do you guys want to hear more of, etc. So there's
In 1999 is when I got involved. I was one of the founding members of the organization, and really formed in response to the concerns we have over withdrawals within the watershed. So over time, as you've already heard, we've been putting our straws in the watershed over time, and that has had an impact to the stream flow. In 2002, there was a study done by a company called GZA, an engineering firm, that examined the hydrologic budget to the watershed and really showed in stark reality the math around how we were extracting water at a rate that was unsustainable for the flows within our rivers. And to the extent that we're taking about 62% more than the watershed can handle. So we're way over budget, if you will. The biggest problem that we have in terms of that challenge isn't in the winter. It's not, wintertime problem. It's really the summertime problem because it's at the summertime when we have the lowest flows and the highest demands. So in Hingham and Hull, we see a 2 to 3 time increase in the per day demand being withdrawn. And it's the time that our environment has the least capacity to handle it. So monitoring stream flows is something that we've done. We provide environmental education in the school system about the watershed, about these issues. We built the Green Estuary Center in Hull as sort of a home base for the organization for people to get together. We host other community groups, including some of those that we've here from tonight. We work with land trusts to try to protect land that's critical to the watershed, because as you already heard, protecting land protects water. What else? Just recently, we worked to plant some species of wetland plants in a smelt habitat restoration project down at the base of Foundry Pond. There was a picture of Foundry Pond here. And just at the base of Foundry Pond Dam, there was a smelt habitat restoration project. We utilized the Hingham High School green team and the teachers, and we put some plantings in for a habitat restoration project to add some diversity as well as some shade and take care of some plants that had passed through. So those are some of our accomplishments. I kind of wrapped a little bit about the challenges in water withdrawals and summertime water use. That's really, I would say, if you're prioritizing, that's pretty high up there. I also think that's something we can do something about because it really is about education. I think we'll talk more about that. We have a whole host of other issues. These are issues that most watersheds face. We're not unusual. We're not sort of standing out on our own. Unfortunately, people have had this impact in most watersheds that they have lived in.
Our discussion about recreation is, in a way, the comic relief between the serious stuff about preserving water and preserving land. But what I want to wake us up to is it's probably our greatest impact on the land and the water. So to get ready for tonight, I did a listing of all the sports and recreational activities I could think of that take place inside our watershed. I don't mean what happens on Kilimanjaro or what happens up in New Hampshire, but what happens here. And these are all bona fide uses of the land in our watershed. Because what we're trying to do is reach a symbiotic, everyone heard that word, symbiotic, sort of mutual balance between what we want for recreational activities and the effort we're willing to spend on reducing the adverse impact of these activities on the watershed. So what we want to do tonight is just open our minds up to thinking a little more deeply, a little more focused about what the things are that we do and the impact of those. Have horseback riding, bird watching. Think about the impact of, I mentioned all the birds that were found on the golf course, but what about a subdivision where the contractor has to clear the trees out before he builds? People will plant the trees will come back, there'll be a fruit, birds will come to the trees. But what are they doing to invigorate the growth when those trees come back? And what's that doing to the natural life in our specimen world? All sorts of paddleboarding, canoeing, kayaking, paddleboarding. And we've got sailing, small sailing on our inland waterways. We tend to think of it as being out in the ocean. Then we've got all of our field sports, major competitive field sports. Think of the Hingham High School complex of fields, for instance. We've got lacrosse, baseball, soccer, field hockey, rugby, softball, kickball, ultimate frisbee. There's even a driving range over in Hingham next to the river. Then we've got our home turf sports. You want to play badminton, croquet, bocce. One thing I had to add to the list was horseshoes. I don't think of our lawns being used for horseshoes. Think of all this activity and all the thousands of people in our watershed that enjoy this. That's why we live here, so we can have all this fun and but the balance is how we go about it and whether we're conscious of the impact of the things we do to enhance those activities.
So this, by the way, is a map that the Hingham Land Conservation Trust has put out for many years. And what it shows you in graphic form is how much land in one way or another is protected in Hingham. And much of it is land that, as you can see, protects water areas, whether it's around the back river or whether it's around, there's some around Accord Pond, a lot of this area and all along the rivers that go through. So, anyways, the purpose of the Hingham Land Conservation Trust and any conservation group that is working to protect water is obviously looking to protect land that is near water or serves, as John so eloquently described, when the water falls and it goes somewhere that's soft and goes down in the ground, then it feeds our aquifer. And so whenever we protect woodland areas, meadows, anything that water can fall and go down into the ground, then we're serving to protect our water supply. So that's our mission. The hard thing, of course, as always, is a combination of money and interest. Land in Hingham is extremely expensive. A small land trust like ours does not have a huge endowment, so we work to protect our own lands, to work to encourage the town to protect lands, particularly that are protective of the water.
When we're looking at open space in Hingham, you're looking at the scenic capacity as well as the environmental, historic. There are about 6 or 7 components that we're looking at for preserving a piece of property on the Hingham side. And we're guided by the open space plan, which Charlie Berry helps to protect and advocate for the Conservation Commission.
One thing also that you touched on, which I think is really important, is that one of the tools that we really need to use more, particularly since land is so expensive, is to figure out ways to use conservation restrictions so that people can own their property if they don't want to sell it. They don't have to give up the ownership of their property, but they can protect it, and particularly in the area along rivers and ponds and so on. So that's another tool that hopefully we'll use more in the future. So that's the challenge, but hopefully we will continue to do what we can to preserve land, to have it receive water and go down into these wonderful aquifers and keep our water in good shape. So,
And habitats.
yes, habitats too.